That just sucks. This sucks on so many levels because the amount of work, the amount of labor that went into pulling this out is absolutely ridiculous. Now, Adrian, he's gotten so familiar with doing this, all because of someone else's F-up, is frustrating. It's frustrating because, you know, this shop survives off of all of our unique talents. And Adrian's talent is building motors and building really unique cars. He's extremely good at what he does. But he's never done a big block Mopar Hemi with this monstrous blower and this big, huge Enderley buzzard catcher. And that's why we relied on an engine builder to do that for us. We just figured, you know, hey, let's put our faith in the hands of an outside shop that has a lot of experience in doing this. And that experience was handed to us by a friend of ours that's in the industry and said, you know, use these guys know what they're doing. We went up there, we met with our builder, and we really liked him. Nice old guy, a lot of experience. After we got the motor back from this shop, installed the motor in the engine bay and had it running for a little while, and it seemed to be going great. Had a little bit of a cold start issue at first, but warmed up a little bit, and we noticed it started mixing a little oil. We were a little concerned about it. Figured, okay, well, it is running E85. Alex, who runs, you know, E85 on a lot of his 2JZ motor builds and even some of his SR20s, he's running E85, and there's a little condensation that's left in the motor, might show or appear to be mixing. We thought maybe that's why, but we decided let's not chance it, and we oil changed it. We sent it to our official tuner, and our tuner did a great job tuning it. Really exciting. It was awesome to see it make the power it did, but the sound was insane. We kept the power down because we wanted it to be reliable. We knew this car was going to be going to a lot of different scheduled events and, you know, people driving it and moving it that weren't experienced, and so we wanted to keep it to where it was reliable and not kill anybody. Very capable of lots of power, but we kept it to around 700-800. So with all that being said, we got it back from the tuner. The tuner pointed some things out to us that got us a little concerned.
You have a burst panel anywhere on this?
A pop-off valve? I don't see one.
Pop-off valve? That's not good, because if that thing pops,
He pops.
it tries to reverse rotate the rotors in the blower. And you can do your blower damage.
You know, he's like, you don't have a backfire plate. You don't have a pressure release plate installed in it. We thought, well, why wouldn't our builder tell us that? It has all this experience. And so we got a little worried about that. While all this was happening in this time frame, our friend that owned the shop passed away. And just the nicest guy you'll ever meet. So we ran into some challenges because the shop had changed ownership. The builders that built this motor for us had left. There was some breakdown in communication issues. When we got the car back from the tuner, we were already a little concerned why this builder didn't tell us about this pressure relief plate. Again, we're not know-it-alls. You know, I know you guys see us build a lot of really cool stuff here, but we made it really clear. This is our first real big block blower gasser style car build that we've ever done. So that's why we put all our money and faith in the hands of a shop that has that experience. So after we learned that Joe had passed away, you know, we were concerned about this pressure plate. We pulled the dipstick and realized we had a serious mixing issue, oil water mixing like crazy. Way more than just condensation from E85. We got on the phone with the builder, and you know, they explained to us, hey, you know, we got some new blayers involved here now, but you know, we'll still honor it since it's really your first startup. Adrian went about pulling the entire motor apart. Big ordeal. Put it in our van, sent it up there, and they discovered that they had ordered the wrong head gasket for this motor. And we thought, well, that's kind of a big deal, you know. We're not getting reimbursed for all the labor of pulling the motor back out, taking the 2-story apartment building that's attached to the top of this motor, the blower, the Enderley buzzard catcher, the riser plate, all that, and we're not getting reimbursed for that. So we sucked it up and sent them the motor. They said, yeah, we got a new head gasket en route, and that new head gasket took about 2.5 weeks. We were getting a little pressure because this car had a scheduled event to attend, and we were, guys, we need to get this motor back because it's not going to just go in the same day. A lot of things have to get reconnected to make this car work. So we got it back, we put it in the car, fired up, everything seemed to be fine, went to the scheduled event, got it back from that scheduled event, and mixing like crazy again. This time worse. This time, you know, it was a latte, not even chocolate, it was a latte. And so we thought, shit. Fortunately, we caught it before it could cause any damage. The car never really got super hot. We got on the phone and we said, you know, we got a problem again with our builder. And our builder was just telling us, well, God, you know, we don't understand what happened. And this time we paid a little more attention to this little culprit, the head gasket. Cometic is a company that makes head gaskets, and they make MLS gaskets, multi-layer steel gaskets that really prevent mixing. And they're real popular on big block Hemi motors like what we have. We were excited about having the proper head gasket on it. They told us they were putting a Cometic head gasket on it. It wasn't. It was a copper gasket. So I get on the phone with Tom Nelson Racing Engines. These guys, Tom knows his shit, man. He's built so many of these motors, makes a lot of really crazy high build motors. And we told him what was going on, and he's like, wait, they put a copper head gasket? Why? A copper head gasket on a brand new Bill Mitchell aluminum 572 Hemi? So come here, let me show you guys this, right? The 572 Hemi, Bill Mitchell has a contract with Mopar. And they are contracted to make their blocks for Mopar, the new bored out 572 Hemi. This was reverse engineered off the 426 Hemi. The 426 Hemi has a piston size of about 4 1/8. The 572 Hemi with larger pistons has about a 4.5 inch piston size. So, you know, the piston size gets larger and the walls get a little skinnier. Tom tells us, hey, it's a common problem to have mixing issues. You never want to put a copper head gasket on a 572. You always want, you know, an MLS, a multi-layer steel head gasket, and Cometic makes a really good head gasket, and that's the head gasket you should have had on the car. Well, that's what we thought we were getting because that's what they told us they were putting on when the motor went back up there the first time. But, you know, since this ownership change went on and we just weren't getting a lot of the support we needed, we were pretty shocked to learn that it was a copper head gasket. And we were more shocked to learn that Tom, who's familiar with this space, says you never want to put a copper head gasket on a motor of this size. Now, we went with off-the-shelf Edelbrock heads, right? The off-the-shelf Edelbrock heads have holes, provisional holes for steam ports, right? The original 426 steel Hemis motors had steam ports. Steam ports, you know, take that condensation, water condensation, it puts it back in the right places. And when Bill Mitchell re-engineered the 572 Hemi, which has a much larger bore size, there was no need to have these steam ports. And so they deleted all the steam ports on the new 572 Hemis. So the Edelbrock heads, which is what the engine builder chose to put on, it has all these steam ports. And they never plugged the holes for the steam ports. And what we realized is the head gasket has a lot of play where it covers the holes, and you could see where mixing was going to take place. You could really see it over here. Come here, check this out. If you look at this head gasket, right? You could see everything doesn't quite line up properly. You've got issues where you could see water would mix. And this is a problem. This is a problem. And if you look, this still moves a little bit and it gets really close to the liner, you know, your bore liner. Ultimately, this is why Tom said you'd never want to use a copper head gasket on a aluminum block non-steam port engine where you're using off-the-shelf heads that have provisions for steam ports. We decided to pull the heads off the motor, and the reason why we didn't pull the heads off the motor the first time was because we paid a builder to do all this, and it wasn't cheap. And you know, when you pull the heads off, it's an opportunity for the builder to say, it's your problem now, it's not ours. So that's why we sent the motor up to them the first time and got it back without pulling the heads off, put the car back together, put the motor back in it, and we didn't want to have a problem because they're the builders. This time around, when we realized it didn't have the Cometic, MLS head gaskets that they had told us they were going to put in it, when we realized they weren't being quite truthful with us, and don't know why they ultimately decided to go with the copper head gasket, we decided, screw it, we can't afford to waste any more time. The amount of labor it takes to pull this freaking behemoth in and out of this car is just way too time consuming, and we decided to do it ourselves. And honestly, if we had a chance to do it all over again, we should have just done it ourselves the first time around and learned how to do this, as opposed to relying on someone else to screw it up, only to have us assume all the labor. We're not getting reimbursed for the labor and the time that it takes to pull this motor in and out. But most importantly, this mistake could have led to major damage. It could have blown this motor. And that's a huge, huge waste of money. Know who's doing your work, and make sure you have a lot of faith in them. And that's not easy today, you guys. Please, tell us your stories. You rely on someone to do your work, they come highly recommended, you give them the money, the car disappears, 6 months later you end up your car back and you're not getting your money back. This is a problem in this industry, and this is part of the reason why a lot of our projects take so long, is because we've learned not to be so reliant on others, and we have to do it ourselves. Had we just done it ourselves the first time and got on Google and learned, my dad used to say, a prudent man learns from his mistakes, but a smart man and an intelligent man learns from other people's mistakes. And that's a lesson to be learned. We could have very easily just taken a couple days, done a lot of research, got on the internet, find out all the challenges of using, a non-steam port aluminum Hemi, off-the-shelf heads, what kind of head gasket to use. Just learned the challenges, the fact that a pressure plate should be installed for backfire issues. These are all lessons that we could have learned ourselves, and I would encourage you, if you're doing a project like this, maybe do it yourself. Learn, go on these forums, go on these different sites that talk about all the challenges of doing something like this. We're not sitting here saying we know it all. We don't. Unfortunately, Adrian could do this with his eyes closed, and that's sad. He shouldn't have to be able to do that, but that's because there's a reliance on, relying on another shop to do the stuff that we hoped that our money was getting us, and that didn't happen. So with all that being said, we've ordered a new Cometic head gasket. We're anxious to see it come back. We are plugging all of the steam port holes on these heads so we don't have mixing issues going back up through those heads. We're not so sure that would be a problem, but we're going to play it safe. So we've got that en route, and I'm praying to God that in the next 2 weeks, this thing will be back together. It kind of needs to be, because it's going to another scheduled event. It's already been seen. Some of you may have seen, Vin Diesel has posted on his social media our Supra. You saw our Supra at an event that they're doing for the new movie, and this car was used quite a bit. They had a couple chargers at their event. We are really excited to see what this next installment of the Fast and Furious Fast 10 Part 2 is going to be all about. We're really excited to see it. We're hoping this car gets a lot of time. And if it does, great. If it doesn't, that's okay too. Our goal was to build something that looked very much like the first car you saw in the very first movie. Mind you, you've seen this, you've heard this before from us. The car where it was sitting in the garage and Dominic Toretto was walking Brian O'Connor around the garage and telling the story of how this car played an important role in their family's history. The studio had to put a motor in there, and they just literally borrowed an engine from an engine builder, and they stuck that motor in. It was an older Hemi with a distributor, located in the back, and they put it together. They never fired it up. It was never connected. It was just there as a static shot. All of the later cars that you saw in that movie had fake blowers. We wanted to copy that as close as we could. We decided, since we don't have a lot of experience in building blower motors, we put our faith in the hands of a shop that has that experience, and we decided to go with new stuff. We wanted to use modern ECUs and modern fuels. We wanted reliability. Hell, we even put a 3-speed overdrive tranny that's bolted to the back of the built 727 so we can get some freeway gears out of it and get some decent speed or highway driving ability. I don't know that we're ever going to put it on the freeway after the stuff we've gone through now. Again, we're anxious to see what this new head gasket does for us. We want to make sure that we're not going to go through this entire exercise of just throwing this thing back together and having it mix again. If the holes don't line up as well as we want them to, then we may end up going the route. Tom at Nelson Racing Engines did recommend there is a special sealant. It's a helicopter turbine sealant that will seal anything. And he said he's used it many times, and mixing is not an issue. The only challenge with it, it's a little messy. If you ever have to remove the heads, it's a lot of work because you have to scrape that crap off, and it's not easy. So we're hoping that the new Cometic MLS head gasket shows up and it fits beautifully, and if we feel confident that it's not going to mix, all this stuff's going to go back together. The 2-story apartment building that's sitting over here on the shelf is going to go back in this car. We're going to fire it up, we're going to drive it, we're going to have fun with it. And I hope you guys get to enjoy it as much as we do. And yes, it is a little scary, it is a little intimidating, but I love it. I love it. I love just looking at it. I can't wait to actually share it with you guys in the future. So tell us your stories. Have you guys relied on a shop to build something for you and, you know, promised this amazing build only to be left with an empty bank account and no build? I'd love to hear it from you because it is a problem. I don't know what's going on, especially in Southern California. You know, be careful, be mindful of who you give your money to. You know, don't assume that they're doing what they're saying they're doing. Get in your car and go look at it. Make sure that they're doing what they're asking you to pay for, because this is a problem. I'm not saying we ran into that challenge. We didn't. We just ran into some bad decisions that were made on their part that ultimately we had to pay for out of our pockets. And that's frustrating. We're not being compensated for all the work and labor that pulling this motor in and out. But it is making us a lot more experienced at pulling it in and out. But that's experience we don't want, you know? Okay, have I whined enough? Have I complained? I don't mean to sound like I'm bitching, but I wanted to give you guys an explanation. We did post on Instagram a picture of this car with the motor out, and a lot of you guys asked questions. We wanted to share with you why it's sitting here with a big, gigantic hole in it. Hopefully it'll be back together soon. Please like this video. Unless you hate it, then don't like it. But I would hope you do. And you know, again, we don't want to come off as know-it-alls. We have a lot of experience and a lot of builds. This is new to us, and we just wanted to share with you something that you know, if we had a chance to do it over again, would we do it differently? Yeah, we'd probably build it ourselves. Would we use a different motor? I'm not so sure. I'm kind of okay with this motor. I'm okay with the Bill Mitchell product. Talking to Bill over at Bill Mitchell is amazing. The guy's just a real honest dude. He's built quite a few of these, and after talking to Tom Nelson at Nelson Racing Engines, he speaks highly of this motor. So I don't have an issue with that. It's just really relying on other people to do the job that we didn't want to do because of our lack of experience, and now we're paying for it. So I hope you got something from this video. More to follow. Hopefully you see this on the road next time, and a bald guy. It'd be great if it was Vin, but me, you know, driving it around, or at least attempting to. So see you guys on the next one. Give us your comments, tell us what you think, and take care of yourselves. Bye now.